Hi, welcome to another episode of Brianna's Bachelor Breakdown. I'm Brianna, your Bachelor Relationship Analyst. If you love getting into the nitty gritty of all the drama and unpacking the relationships, then this channel is for you. Today we're going to be covering week 3 from Clayton season. And make sure you tune in next week as well. I'll be recapping with Kelly and Julie from the YouTube channel Here to Find Love. They're two dating coaches that also love dissecting and getting into all the drama and relationships that happen on the show. So I'll be linking their channel in the description so you can go ahead and check them out ahead of time. Eliza,
yes.
Put on her best outfit.
Exactly. A moment that stood out to me was when she was talking to them, looking in the mirror, and he said with his mouth, he said, "Look at us. We've got impeccable style." And I said, "She's got impeccable style. You are wearing a hoodie under a blazer for the third time."
So I have two very special guests joining me today, Rachel and Glenn. We all went to high school together. Would you guys like to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, I'm Glenn, and this is my first season watching The Bachelor, so I'm new to Bachelor Nation.
And I'm Rachel, and I am quite the opposite. I am a lifelong fan of The Bachelor Nation, and and somewhat lifelong friends with Glenn and Brianna.
Somewhat.
I know how we're connected now.
Yeah. So let's jump right into it. So we open up this episode. We had a cliffhanger from 2 weeks ago. So we open it up right in the thick of the action. Cassidy and Clayton are chatting. He's confronting her about this friends with benefits, and she's really trying to downplay it, as well as like her intentions and motivations for coming onto the show. But Clayton comes with the receipts from Sierra about what the actual timeline of their interactions were. So what were y'all's thoughts on this exchange and him eventually sending her home?
Well, I think the first thing that I kind of like noticed was that when Sierra was telling the other girls about what she told Clayton and what she knew about this situation, my opinion about the severity of the situation changed, because last week, when I just thought it was that she had a friends with benefits situation, that's all it was, that was the issue. I was like, okay, that's not so bad. Like, I'm sure plenty of contestants have had that in the past. But then when Sierra clarified that it was a situation where she told the other, or someone, that her intention was to come on the show to make the guy jealous, that changes things. I don't know if she told that to Clayton. I feel like if she told that part to Clayton, this conversation would have been easy, quick, donezo if he confronted her with that. So I almost wish that all of that had been communicated so that we could have made this a lot simpler and easier. Because I feel like the conversation was much longer and more complex than it needed to be. It should have been a straightforward confrontation. I think Clayton has difficulty with that, which is why I think this was dragged out, because it's like he didn't want to come out and say, "Why are you lying to me? Why stop all this?" Because she was getting so emotional and trying to almost distract him from the issue. And so I feel like if there was more details that he had, then he could have just been direct with those. I don't know if he would have been more direct if he had more details, but he was very, I think, unwilling to be confrontational, which just made this, like I said, a lot more complex than it needed to be. It could have been a done, quick conversation and okay, bye, go home. But the fact that they had to move locations during the conversation, which is how long it took. Like, they were outside and then they parted ways, and then he met her in the bathroom and she said, "Thank you for meeting me here," as if they called a business meeting. It was just too much. Could have been overdone so quick. So yeah, I think just the clearest thing from this is that Clayton just has a huge difficulty, and I think we're seeing that with something else as well, but a huge difficulty with having these confrontational conversations. And he's also, I think, easily manipulated, because she was really trying to lay it on thick with this emotional manipulation, like saying, I would hate for you to send someone home who's meant for you. Like, it would just be so bad for you because no one else is here for the right reasons like I am. And it's just like this, and like kissing him on the cheek, like before he can even say what he wants to say. Yeah, it was just a lot. And I think he allowed a lot of that like emotional manipulation because he just wasn't willing to like just cut it off and end it, just let her keep going on. So it was a lot.
I agree that he's easily manipulated, and I'm glad that he called her out, saying like, at the beginning of the conversation you said like you didn't have anyone that you want to be in a relationship in, and now you're admitting to the fact that there is this other person. And I do agree with the decision to send her home, if not just because she was causing so much like disruption in the house, and like animosity with the other girls. But and this might be an unpopular opinion, I feel like it's a little bit hypocritical for the reasoning to be that she had like her previous relationship before she came on the show. And I know the whole thing is like, oh, well, she was like talking about how she's on the show because of him and she was FaceTiming him and blah, blah, blah. But like the first rose he offered was to a girl who was just engaged and just broke off her engagement and came on the show. And it's like, I mean, if that's okay, then why is it like this person's relationship history or whatever not okay? Why can't she get past it with you? And I mean, I definitely think it was drawn out and like pumped up for the drama, and maybe the producers, I don't know if the producers have any kind of say about who stays and who goes, but I definitely feel like the producers are probably like, you should take that rose back. But I kind of felt like it was hypocritical.
That is an excellent point. I did not even think about how it could be taken in context with the first rose that he tried to give out that was rejected. And I agree. I think that just the idea of just having a friend with benefits is like, is not some sort of like scandal, like I'm sure a lot of girls had guys that they maybe were or were not like trying to figure things out with up until they came onto the show. I think for me, the biggest red flag was just not even like we're saying like the actual like activity or incident that was happening, but like how Cassidy was handling it. Like the fact that she was like downplaying it and like lying about it. And she was like, I've never even looked at a guy since 2019. And then Clayton was like, okay, but Sierra told me you were FaceTiming him like literally the weekend before you got here. And she was like, oh yeah, like that part's true. Like different things kept coming out. And to me, it's like, if I'm looking for a partner and I see that you have the ability to lie about something that shouldn't even impact our relationship, then like what else do you have the ability to lie about? So I think clearly Clayton made the right decision, but it did take him a while to kind of sift through everything and kind of cut through her BS. Yeah.
I do think if she had like, if the first time he asked, if she had come out and said, yeah, I know what you're referencing, here's the situation and this is how I feel about it. If she had come out, I think he honestly would have been cool with it. And I think that's why it's different than the girl who came to him and said I was engaged and broke it off, because I think she was coming to him with that information and he was like, okay, we're starting with honesty because you're telling me right away who you are and what your situation is. And so I do think the reason he sent her home in the end had nothing to do with the situation. It had to do with the fact that she was dishonest to his face, and then was changing the stories on him. And that's not a good way to start a relationship. So she really could have fixed it for herself if she hadn't been trying to save her own ass.
That's
what
true.
I want to know is, because she was like, I already know what you're going to say. And
yeah.
Then she said it, and then she's like, this wasn't what I thought you were going to say. And I was like,
what was she thinking? What was it? That's what I would have asked as Clayton, because I would have been like, wait, is there something else?
You're right.
Yeah.
Were you about to say something else, Glenn?
Yeah, I guess like you do. I guess if you're the Bachelor, you really do have to be careful of like who's lying to me and who's not, because people come on the show for all types of reasons. Maybe they're not there to fall in love with you. Maybe they're there to, I think people said like, increase their following or something like that. So I think you make a good point, Rachel, and I agree with that like maybe if she had handled it differently, it would have gone differently. But well, she's gone now.
Yep.
Yeah, it was kind of anticlimactic. I wish they had like done it at the end of last week's or 2 weeks ago's episode when we were like really thick into the drama and like, oh my gosh, all these receipts are coming out. But like this week it was like, okay, like, yeah, here we are. You're doing what you need to do. Like, I don't know.
I think there's a part of this, I think that's part of a pattern that they've created for Clayton season, because I think they're trying to keep people watching, is like the juiciest part, or what we think is going to be the juiciest part, they stop it right before that and then save that for the beginning of the next episode, like this one. So yeah, I think they could have very easily, as anticlimactic as that was, that could have been in the last episode, but I think they drew it out just because I think they're trying to get some more intrigue into the season.
Yeah.
Do they typically start an episode with a rose ceremony? Because I was like thinking in this episode, I was like, I'm used to watching a reality show or competition show and it like ends with the elimination or whatever. I don't know. Is that normal?
I think it depends. I mean, I think it's not like they don't do that, but it's not like they do that every time. I would say it's pretty typical. I think more so from my memory from Bachelor seasons to save the elimination or save the rose ceremony for the beginning of the next episode. But I think it just depends on what kind of drama there is. If it's going to be a quick and simple rose ceremony, or if there's like this whole blowout before it, they'll do the blowout, they'll prioritize that, and then save the discovery of who's going to actually go home till the next episode. So I think it goes back and forth. I don't know if there's a set pattern of if it's going to be one way or the other. I don't know. I might be wrong though.
No, I would agree with that. I guess I hadn't noticed a distinction between like Bachelor and Bachelorette seasons, because I feel like they just do this all the time. But I would say, as a fan, as a viewer, I think that it's like viewers' preference to have a rose ceremony at the end of an episode, especially in these earlier episodes, because we don't know who half of these girls are going home. So like if I have to log on to The Bachelor and watch it, and I'm just watching like 5 girls who I don't know their name going home in the first 10 minutes of the episode, it's like, okay, like I would rather just end that when I'm already like 2 hours deep into the episode and I'm like already kind of like closing it in my mind. It's just not a very exciting introduction, personally, because I'm not as invested in who's going home.
Yeah. It's so funny because like these rose ceremonies in these first couple episodes are always just like a series of like him saying a name and me going, wait, who is that? I've never heard that name before.
Yeah. So then after that, we have a group date, and we pull up to a stage, dark room, and we see Kaitlyn Bristowe, and it is I think new classic Bachelor date in which everyone sits around in a circle and unveils their deepest, darkest secrets. Both Clayton and the girls share something from their past. What were y'all's thoughts on just like the day portion of this date, the format, and like did any of the girls or like Clayton's statements stand out to you?
It reminded me, have y'all ever watched America's Next Top Model and they go in and it's like a dark stage and they're about to have to do like an acting challenge or something? And I was like, are they about to like do a play or something? But it was not that. It was a lot more disappointing. Personally, that would be like my nightmare date, to go and sit around in a circle and talk about our secrets with people we don't know. So it was okay. I mean, you say that's like a classic Bachelor date, so I guess I'm just not used to that kind of thing. The one thing I got out of it was I did feel like Clayton was genuine for a moment, and I appreciated that, because I feel like up until this point, he's kind of seemed robotic and he doesn't seem like a real person. So nice to see that for a second.
I will say, so they did this on Katie's season, and the difference I noticed, the women got way deeper, way quicker than the men got when they did it on Katie's season. I don't know if that's just a difference in like comfortability with talking about emotions, because I know there's a stigma with men talking about their emotions in front of each other. So I think it was a little more difficult in Katie's season. I think it became a more natural conversation. I mean, I think Kaitlyn only asked one question, and then the girls just took off with that. They were like, all right, let's go. And it became like almost a support group for them, and they fed off each other. And so I feel like it was definitely more natural than it was it felt in Katie's season, where the men had to be prompted with more questions and they were giving more surface level stories. And this felt more revealing and felt more like the girls were actually being vulnerable. And it was nice to learn a lot about the contestants. I do feel that this was not for the contestants, though. This was for Clayton. I think it was set up to show us another side of Clayton, because a lot of it was on Clayton. I mean, compared to the one that Katie did, where that was about her contestants, we didn't get a whole lot from Katie, but this one, I feel like half of it was Clayton. So I think it was, this type of date was chosen for Clayton because they wanted us as viewers to get to know him more and get to feel sympathy for him. But I do appreciate that we definitely got to learn more about the contestants. Like, some girls that I had not really paid a lot of attention to until now have now like kind of risen in the ranks for me. So I think it was, I'd be interested to see this start as a pattern of seeing a group date like this in the first couple of episodes for every season. I think it's an interesting idea, and I think it forces vulnerability early on.
Yeah, I had written, going back a little bit, I had written the same exact thing in my notes about like Caitlyn only asking one single question. Because I thought this was going to be like one of those like privilege walk things where she was going to be like, stand up if X, Y, and Z statement applies to you.
There was no more after that first.
And it wasn't even like a very like thought-provoking statement. She was like, stand up if you don't like something about yourself. Like, okay, cool. Like, it just, I didn't think it would get there that quickly, like you said, but it did. And I appreciate that the girls were open with each other. I agree, like, Katie's season was kind of, the only thing that sticks out to me from Katie's season is Thomas being like, I have all these red flags and I could tell you about them, but I won't. And it's just like, okay, I think you're missing the point. But the girls here understood the assignment. And so did Clayton. I agree, it was nice to hear more about him, things that he's struggled with. It was interesting though, like his pattern or cadence of speaking, because I feel like he spoke at the beginning and said something more service level. And then he came back and he's like, yeah, I've struggled too, like you wouldn't be able to tell by looking at me. And it's like, okay, like let's get to it. Like, I think it took him a few tries to kind of figure out, okay, I need to open up, like this is not just about the girls on the date.
Parisi, I'm interested in hearing your thoughts about like what you thought about when the contestant brought up how much harder it is to be a Black woman, and then what Clayton said in response to that, because I was wondering, like, is that just like you talk a lot about in your recaps, like, you know, has the show really grown, like, or are they just, you know, doing it all for PR? That kind of felt like a PR thing to me, but I wanted to hear what you thought about it.
Yeah, no, I definitely had mixed feelings about it. Because when she said it, I was like, she literally took the words out of my mouth. If I were a contestant, like if I were in her shoes going on to date Clayton, I'd be like, no, we're probably not going to be talking about race. Like, we're not going to get deep into a subject like that. So like when she said that, I was like, wow, like you actually said probably what a lot of the other like women of color are thinking. So I thought that was really cool. But then his response, it felt flat to me, because I was kind of like, what can you really say? You know what I mean? Like, you're not going to say something racist because that's not appropriate. But then it's like, he just gave an answer that's like, yeah, you can talk to me. It was just kind of like, what else are you going to say? You know? Which I feel like it's hard because I don't really know what type of answer I was looking for. I felt like it was like, if I were giving him a performance review, it'd be like meets expectations. Yeah, like he didn't say anything wrong, but he didn't say anything that was like, wow, oh my gosh, he gets it. What were y'all's thoughts?
I mean, I would agree. I think it was I think it was set up and positioned like we as viewers were supposed to be like, oh my gosh, wow, look at him, he's so sensitive. Like, he was hearing her, he wants to have this conversation. But I think it was very just bare minimum of what he could have said, because simply all he said was, no, I want you to talk about that stuff with me. And then that's it. Like, and it's like, of course, that's what you say. Like when someone says, I'm worried about talking about this stuff, you say like, no, feel free to talk about whatever. So, he could have gone a little deeper if he wanted to and talked about, probably some of the stuff that is on her mind about the complexities there are going to be about him being, as a white man, being in a relationship with a woman of color, and the disparity there is there in privilege. And he doesn't necessarily need to go into that, obviously, but there could have been something with a little more nuance that he could have responded with that could have exceeded expectations. But I don't think what he said was impressive in any way. It just was bare minimum. It just wasn't problematic.
Yeah.
And if that's the bar that we're setting, then the bar is on the ground. So
we already knew that.
Absolutely. But it was, interesting that was part of the conversation, and I'm glad that she voiced that. And I think it is definitely a sign of the show trying to bring in conversations that they have been avoiding, but not going deeper with it ever. Just still scratching the surface.
Yeah, I would have liked to see the actual conversation. Like, I would have liked to see like her time in the after party be used to be like, okay, these are some of my concerns, like dating a white man, and him to be like, this is what I've thought about. This is what I anticipate being a struggle. This is how I plan to work through it. Like, I would have liked to see the actual conversation as opposed to just the headline or like, we need to have this conversation. Like, okay.
Yeah. It would have been great to see them one-on-one next, and then him to say, hey, I know you said that in there. Is there anything you wanted to talk to me about that you were referring to specifically when you said that you were afraid to or holding back from talking to me? It was something specific on your mind that you now want to talk about with me now that the door's open. Like, it would have been awesome to see that. But we just never saw the follow-up, which is typical of the Bachelor Nation.
Yeah. Did you have any other thoughts on it, Glenn?
I agree with y'all that he didn't really say anything of substance. It wasn't like he was like, you know what, you're right. Like, it is so much harder for Black women or anything like that. So I just thought it was interesting. Like I'm always sitting there trying to be like, what are the producers trying to do to me? Like, what are they trying to get me to think? Like, I'm very paranoid about like, did he really like want to say that, or is that like a producer thing? I don't know how this stuff works, but in my mind, it's just all like producer. But then like the previous episode with like Shanae and everything, and that just seemed really,
which I'm so glad is over.
God. And then for this to be in the next episode, I'm like sitting there like, is this to make up for that? Or, I mean, do they not even understand that was weird? And like, they're just still trying to make themselves, I don't know. It's just, they're up and down. Bachelor's crazy. Like, they're all over the place.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. I feel like taken in context with the previous episode, this episode, or like this portion of this episode was very tone deaf. Because it's like, how are you just gonna sit here and allow this white woman to talk about Shanae? And then the next episode, you have the lead being like, no, I hear you, I see you. Like, it just, you're right, it doesn't really line up. But I'm not surprised. So then we go to the after party. The girls are looking fabulous. Clayton is dressed in a hoodie and a blazer for the 18th time. So did any girls' interaction scenes or moments stand out to you from the after party?
I'm forgetting her name, the girl who got the group date rose.
Eliza,
yes.
Who put on her best outfit.
Exactly. A moment that stood out to me was when she was talking to them, looking in the mirror, and he said with his mouth, he said, look at us, we've got impeccable style. And I said, she's got impeccable style. You are wearing a hoodie under a blazer for the third time. I'm beginning to get sick of this look of his. I don't know why it's been chosen as his signature look. This hood, because I don't remember that being, well, it's hard because he was like almost never on the camera in Michelle's season. But like, I don't remember that being a thing when he was a contestant. Maybe I didn't pay enough attention.
Like, I remember specifically on his date with Michelle, he wore a button up. Like, he looked normal.
We know he can wear a button up. So where is it? Where's the button up? Because it's just, especially when these ladies are going all out and these ladies are putting on their finest threads, and he's in the, and it's like, I noticed he's trying to dress up the hoodie. I think this one was like a knit hoodie. It was a fancy hoodie, but it was a hoodie nonetheless.
Yeah.
And for him, for the lack of self-awareness, for him to look in that mirror and say, we've got impeccable style.
You said me and you are the same level.
Exactly.
We have the same level of style.
She
said, I put on my best fit, and he said, me too. He said, I did as well.
It's just, it was insane. But I think that was cool of her to do that mirror thing. I think I think that's part of the reason she got the group date rose, is because she tried to think of something different than just a sit down on the couch conversation, and it was a recall to some of the things they talked about. I thought it was really powerful, that idea of like, look in the mirror, look at us in like a positive way, because they just talked about looking in the mirror in a bad way. So I think that was really good, a good idea, and a notable thing. Obviously it stood out to him. But I think a lot of the girls shared some really important and vulnerable things during the actual date itself. So I feel like in terms of quality conversations, the after party didn't necessarily stand out too much because they had just gone through some emotional conversations already. But I think Eliza's moment did definitely stand out with the mirror. I think that was a good move on her part.
Glenn?
I have to be honest, I don't have any memory of the after party of that date. I don't know why. And it was like, I guess just the least interesting part of the whole episode to me. I keep thinking about the after party of the next date. Is looking whack when he's wearing his hoodie under his blazer. Maybe he thinks he's serving a look. Maybe he thinks that's like his thing. I've said it before. I feel like it's like he showed up to a fancy restaurant with a dress code and he was wearing his like football, I don't know, sweats. And they were like, you need a blazer to come into this place. And he's like, okay, let me throw it on. But yeah.
That's a great like analogy for it, because it is very much, every time I see him on screen, it's very much like he came underdressed and someone let them borrow his sports jacket so that he could fix it up.
He's like, oh, this actually is kind of good. Like maybe
maybe the directors chose that outfit for him once and he said, this is it. This is what I look best in.
The stamp I leave on Bachelor Nation is this outfit.
He does have a very broad chest. And I know that sometimes guys with that build are worried about button downs because of the button pulling. But like, he's been in a button down before. There are button downs that fit that chest style. So, and he has the resources.
Big and tall store.
Yeah. I mean, he's the lead of The Bachelor. Like, they could, get him a custom fit button up.
Yes, he's got the resources.
Does he have the style?
Right. They keep saying, we can buy you some button downs. He says, nope, I brought plenty of money.
One girl that did stand out to me, I agree that like, other than Eliza, there weren't a lot of like moments that really drove anything home. But one interaction that did stand out to me was Susie. Not because their conversation was like anything significant, but I just thought it was like really interesting / like unnecessary. They were like making out and he's like, hang on, let's get up. And I was like, oh, does he have a surprise for her? Is he gonna like provide her with a gift, a small token, and then he just took her on the balcony to make out with her? And for me, I was watching that and I was like, I know as a contestant, I'd be perfectly comfortable being seated indoors on a couch making out with you, and you want me to get up to do the same activity in a different location. Like, it was very unnecessary, in my opinion.
You hate when they move locations on there, because you brought that up. What was that one where it was like, it was a couple, I forget who season it was on, but they moved to like a bed of hay to continue their conversation.
Okay, but that's weird. That's literally weird.
But it's just so funny that stands out to you so much. They moved locations while they were talking and kissing.
Because I'm always trying to maximize my comfort, like just in my life. So if I see someone reducing their comfort for no reason, it grinds my gears.
That's showbiz, though. It's like when you're watching a movie and like people are like talking to each other, and then all of a sudden they just like change spots just because they need something to look different.
Yeah.
It was in his ear, like, can we get some B-roll of the sunset, or I don't know. No memory.
Yeah, well, I guess that stuck out to just me. What about it?
Yeah, I don't know if I took personal note of that.
Now that you say that, I'm gonna be like identifying every time they change locations.
Every time. Well, and I noticed it when him and Cassie were talking at the beginning of the episode that they moved, but they had a whole like thing about moving.
That's true. Yeah.
And so it is annoying when they do move to another location for no reason. Because in that conversation with Cassie in the beginning, they could have stayed. I don't know why they decided to walk away from each other.
The conversation.
Yeah. No one did anything when they left. It's not like Clayton was going to leave to do something and Cassie was going to leave to do something. They just left and then came back together. Just
he
stay
did sit and ponder by that fire for a minute.
True.
I remember that. I thought that was hilarious that he was like sitting in front of that fire, like. But like y'all said, like he doesn't know how to deal with confrontation like right off the bat. So I think he has to go like collect himself and then.
Yeah. But this change in location was unnecessary because they were still like talking. They were still kissing. And it's not like they walked away from each other. They just went to go talk and kiss somewhere else. So this was unnecessary.
Yeah.
I just remembered too, another girl that stood out on this date, Hunter.
Oh yeah.
Because I feel like she shared the most compelling story, and it was odd to not see that continued too much after that. To not touch base with Hunter as much, because I feel like Hunter really put her entire self out there, and to not get the recognition for that was interesting. Because I definitely feel like she, in the date itself, stood out the most. Not necessarily in the after party, but to not see that continue over was interesting.
That's very true. Yeah. And that's kind of like a little bit of my issue with this style or format of date, because it's like the girls just like bare their soul. And then sometimes for like no, I don't want to say reward, but like no return on investment, essentially. Like you could just like sit there and like pour your heart out to the lead, and it's like you might not even get time with him at the cocktail party.
Or it might be diluted by another girl coming right after you saying a more emotional story or just a different emotional story. And I feel like that's why these conversations, I feel like, are better for one-on-one dinners and one-on-one conversations, so that it does have the impact it deserves. Because that story was really emotional, and that I could easily see that same thing that Hunter was revealing being a focal point of a one-on-one dinner, being like a whole story arc. Of them exploring that together and talking about that. And it could have been a whole conversation point, but then it was just like, okay, move on to the next girl. And here's another emotional story. It was a lot, and it doesn't save room for the impact, for the actual, we're growing as a one-on-one relationship because of this story. It's more just him sitting there and like hearing a bunch of emotional stories after another, but not necessarily being able to connect them with a connection with the girl.
Yeah, it's very desensitizing.
Yeah.
Y'all are perfectly articulating why I didn't like this date. Like, I don't think I knew that before y'all started talking about it, but I was like, yeah, like it's, I mean, what good is it for me to tell like a group of people a sob story when I'm trying to get to know a guy? If we can't like talk about it, he can't respond to it. He can't be like, oh, I've experienced something like that. And then, you know, I mean, of course we didn't see the whole thing, but I wonder if it was just like let me see if I can one up this girl with like a sadder story. I've been in situations where I've been sitting in a circle with people trying to one up each other on depression stories, like more than you'd think, and it's not fun. It's not fun.
Wow.
I know, isn't that weird?
It seems like a very common occurrence.
But it just gets to a point where it just, I don't know, it makes me, I mean, you know, terrible that you like went through that, but like I'd much rather have that one-on-one discussion with that person about that than like hear about it in a group setting. Yeah.
So then after that, Sarah gets the one-on-one date. It is hosted by Becca Kufrin, who is having them do an extreme scavenger hunt around downtown LA in their underwear. Any thoughts on this date portion of the date?
Can I just say, I don't know what the fascination is with lately of having contestants strip down to their underwear on public dates. Because I know this happened with Rodney on Michelle's season. They
Oh, the
had
truth
Rodney
or
just
dare thing.
get into his underwear and then just run around the lobby.
He was not in underwear.
Oh, was he? Was he not?
No.
Was he completely naked?
Yeah, he had the little
What's the
pillow.
fascination? And I thought it was just so annoying that they could have very much done this not in their underwear, and it would have been just the same date. Like, what was the underwear component? Why was that necessary? I guess it was them showing that they're like carefree and willing to put it all out there. But it's just unnecessary. And I feel like, what if either of them didn't want to be in their underwear? And what if they would have been more comfortable with each other if they weren't kind of like 50% of their brains thinking about the fact that, like, oh, I'm in my underwear right now in public. I just felt like it was revealing for no reason. Like, maybe, I've seen dates on Bachelor in Paradise where they in an intimate setting get down, like strip down to their underwear just to be vulnerable with each other. That's fine, because that is more about just like, okay, let me see you and let you see me, kind of like vulnerability. But this was just unnecessary, and I feel like almost embarrassing for no reason, like putting them on the spot and making them expose themselves to the public city for no reason. And it's just, why include that as an element of the date? Why can't they just do these fun things and get to know each other? So it seemed unnecessary. And I thought it was like funny when she said in your underwear, and Sarah was immediately like, "What if you're not wearing underwear?" And it's like, you're wearing underwear, girl. That dress is too short for you not to be wearing underwear right now. And I do believe the producers gave them underwear, because no way is that the underwear that they were wearing when they got ready for this. It's matching. It is not the type of underwear that you would expect them to be wearing, especially Sarah for that outfit. So I
don't think Sarah was wearing a bra, because her dress is backless. So exactly. I think that's what she was referencing.
Okay. Yeah, so I think they did provide them underwear, which, again, unnecessary. Why is that a part of it? But the date as a whole was fun. It was typical. I don't know if we got to know them too much, but the singing was awkward. The rap was interesting. I think these kind of dates typically just show the fun side of the contestant, and allow them to have that fun together. But I don't know if the dinner was nice, but the date itself was just kind of like, okay, this could have easily been to a group date thing, like a nice little scavenger hunt with the group. I could have easily seen that. So it didn't seem that impactful as a one-on-one date.
My impression of it, I guess the underwear thing was like part of the whole theme of vulnerability. Like, let's be vulnerable and be in public in our underwear. Again, not necessary. The singing and the rapping was really cringy, but a second moment where Clayton shows some semblance of a personality, which actually makes me like him more. So like this episode did achieve winning me over just a little bit more. His rap was gross, but he was like, it seemed like he was having fun. He was enjoying himself, and he wasn't taking himself too seriously. So like, I'm like, okay, so he's not just a robot who, like, I don't know, is like, and then has to go be by himself when he's confronted with drama. So, but that's really the only thoughts I had about it. It was weird and random, and I think it would have been more interesting as a group date to see, like, if everyone was in like matching something and like running around.
Yeah. I mean, that's basically what the next group date ended up being, is just getting them all in an outfit and having them do a bunch of different tasks.
Yeah.
So the one-on-one doesn't stand out if it's not a very interesting activity for a one-on-one. I mean, honestly, if I was like a contestant and I was like sharing that one-on-one story and then hearing about other people's one-on-ones, like the last girl got to go in a helicopter, I would have been like, what the heck? I got ripped off.
No, honestly, it felt like the producers just like had a bunch of prompts in a hat and they just pulled it out and strung it together. Because like we're saying, the underwear thing didn't matter, wasn't necessary. But I feel like also a scavenger hunt is supposed to lead somewhere. There's supposed to be an end goal. It's supposed to be a clue-based activity that leads you to an end result. And everything was disjointed, disconnected, decentralized. Like none of the tasks like led into the next one. I don't even think they were finding clues. I don't even think it was like, go to X type of location and do this activity. Like I think they just like went from spot to spot and just like did the activity. Like it was just very like okay, here's a bunch of tasks and like do them in this order. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, 100%. It wasn't as, I mean, not a single riddle was solved. And if not a single riddle is solved, it's not a scavenger hunt.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And can we talk about how they brought Becca on for this and Caitlin was the host of the last thing? It's just like, it's not going to fly. It's not going to fly. You can't, Bachelor Nation, I'm talking to y'all producers right now, if you can hear me.
They're watching this channel.
You can't bring on your own celebrities as celebrity guests. I'm sick of it. I'm not going to react like I care anymore. Listen, I love the occasional guest appearance by another, an alum of the Bachelor Nation. Fine. But 2 in a row, when we just had Hillary Duff and Z-Way last episode, and now we're getting 2 Bachelor Nation alum, 2 recent ones. I just saw Caitlin on Katie and Michelle season. Just saw her. Don't need her. We just saw Becca on Paradise. We're fine for a little while. If you're going to bring back an alum, let's see JoJo. Let's see Juan Pablo.
No. I'll stop you right there.
I'm just saying, it's just like seems like so cheap. It's like you're getting your own people to come on as celebrity guests. These aren't celebrity guests. These are your own people. So cheap. So I'm done with it. After Caitlin, I was like, okay, you know, of course we're going to get an alum. And then they show Becca right after. Where was the budget for this episode? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, no, that's facts. Yeah, especially, I'd rather see an alum we haven't seen recently. Like, maybe Rachel Lindsay instead of...
Yeah, she's never coming back.
I know, she got her man, and she said, my contract is over. Yeah. So, then at night, they go to a Van Gogh art museum for dinner. Sarah opens up about being adopted and feeling like she has been a second choice as a result. I personally zoned out for the rest of the date because it was very boring. But does anyone have any thoughts / any updates about what happened at the rest of the date?
I thought it was romantic. I mean, I guess for a date, I was like, that's something I would want to do, not run around in my underwear or like sit in a circle and talk about my feelings, but like be in the Van Gogh thing, and there's like the orchestra, and I thought that was pretty cool. But you're right, not like super exciting or thrilling. And then I was like, is it an advertisement for the Van Gogh art exhibit? Because I feel like that's been making its rounds. Like it was in Charlotte over the summer. It's actually here in Asheville right now, I think, or it was like just last month. I'm like, are they like all over the world right now? And they're just trying to be like, you know, it'd be a great date. Van Gogh Art Museum. But then again, that's me being paranoid that every single thing that's happening is like some ulterior motive, which maybe it is.
Contractually, the Bachelor producers do have to show, like anytime they choose a location, they have to have a standalone clip announcing the title of it. Like if they go to a hotel, they have to have like a zoomed in camera shot of like the name of the hotel just in their contract. So their motivations for picking the Van Gogh like exhibit or whatever, I don't really know like why they wanted to do that in particular as opposed to other museums or exhibits. But since they did pick it, they did have to like announce like this is where we are today.
That makes sense.
Yep.
Rachel, any thoughts on the date?
The dinner didn't stand out to me. I mean, I was half intrigued when she started sharing that story about being adopted, but I'll have to say I don't know if I could recall what the last half of the dinner was like, because I do believe I zoned out.
Yep.
Which is typical on these like early one-on-one dinners where they don't quite know each other that well yet, and especially after a one-on-one activity that didn't really reveal anything about the other. I think, you know, he commented on, oh, that was so fun seeing that side of you. But if I hear that one more time after a purposefully, like, it's not like she came out there and chose to do that herself. Yeah. That's not another side of her. That's not a part of her personality that she was forced to beatbox in the park or forced to rap in the park. So no, you didn't learn anything about her. You learned that she's not a coward, I guess. She'll do those things, but yeah, so it just seemed like platitudes in the end there that are typical after these first few one-on-one dates.
Yeah, I was honestly surprised that she did get a one-on-one, because I feel like usually these one-on-ones go to girls who like I've seen the lead chat with, a few times in cocktail parties or whatever, but I didn't even know her name when it
Didn't she got a group date rose last episode, didn't she?
Did she?
Didn't the second group date rose go to her? Yeah.
That was so overshadowed by
100%.
everything else. So
yeah.
I probably was not focused.
Yeah, I think because Shanae was upset that she didn't get it.
I mean, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she got the group date rose. Who got the first impression rose?
Teddi.
Has she got a one-on-one yet? No, right?
Mm-mm.
That's a little weird.
Men will give out their first impression rose and then never talk to old girl ever again.
Oh, right. So. It's the Bachelorette always, she knows, she locks in. She's like, I'm interested in these men. They're exactly what I'm looking for. But the Bachelor's just all over the place. Yeah. Like, it's just like, okay, I had a good conversation with her. Next one-on-one.
I thought it was because, like, he's like, oh, I already know I have a good connection with Teddi. Let me see if I have a good connection with any of these other people. But then again, I don't have a lot of Bachelor experience, so that could not even be what's going on here.
No, I think that's a good point. That could be going on in there.
Yeah.
Because it still seems like they have good chemistry, like when they do interact alone. So yeah. I was like, oh, maybe he just thinks like, well, I already know that Teddi's cool. Like, let me see if this girl's cool.
Yeah. For me, though, I feel like when the guys take that approach, it to me comes across as like more breadth over depth. Like, let me just get to know a bunch of different people as opposed to like, okay, I know I connected with you. Let's see if that develops further. And so for me, it ends up seeming like they kind of forget about those early connections and just like feel like they don't have to put any effort into them because they think they're always going to be there. But then they come back like 4 weeks later and it's like, oh, wait, I don't really know you. And now I have to eliminate you because I didn't take the time to get to know you.
You could be right. I do get the sense that Clayton doesn't really know what he wants in a partner. Like, he doesn't know the qualities that he's looking for in a partner, which is, I feel like, why he's so easily like manipulated by the surface level impression of someone. Because he's like, oh, well, Cassidy's kissing me and I like that. So this must be like a pretty good choice or something. I don't know.
Yes. He wants a wife and a mother.
Yep.
That's his vision of the future, a family.
Yeah, I feel like every time a girl reveals something about herself, like, oh, this is my upbringing or this is what I went through, he's like, yeah, I can totally relate to that. And I'm like, you cannot relate to everyone's experiences. Like, you just can't.
Like you say you relate, but like, yet I know nothing about your background. Like, tell me the story. I love you. I don't know anything about you.
Right. What are his parents like? What was his family like?
Apparently,
what are his hobbies? He doesn't even have a defining hobby. In Bachelors in the past, we've at least had one defining hobby.
Well,
Chris was a farmer. Colton was a football player.
Clayton is a football player.
Is he?
Yeah.
He's built like one. Is he actually a football player?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He went to Mizzou, and then I think he was in the NFL.
Can he throw a football, please? Like, can we just get, I mean, at least Colton at least had that, and he wasn't even a current football player. Philanthropy was his thing. What's Clayton's thing? Who knows? Hobby? Can I see it, please? He likes kids. I guess.
So then we go backwards a little bit. While Sarah was out running around downtown LA, we're at the house. Elizabeth is cooking up a snack. This wasn't a meal. She cooked up shrimp as a snack for the house.
15 shrimp for like a whole house of people. I was like, what did you think was going to happen?
Well, it showed, I think it was more than 15 because it showed 2 pans that had like the oil in it. So I think Shanae was like, there's like 15 shrimp here, but I think because that was just maybe like a leftover bowl. But then when it cut to there being no shrimp, it was 2 whole like cast iron skillets.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's still not a lot. I don't know. But yeah.
She wasn't supposed to feed the house.
Well, she operated the whole house.
I think she thought she was making a snack. And then not for someone to have, like, their dinner is now the shrimp that Elizabeth cooked. Just like, okay, that's come by and, like, pop a few shrimp into your mouth. Not take a plate, load it with shrimp. That wasn't the expectation.
That's fair. I guess I was thinking like, yeah, Elizabeth is annoying, but like me personally, if someone provided me some free pre-cooked shrimp, I would load that up. I would not be trying to cook for myself that night. So
delicious. It looks
so
good.
Yeah, I'd be like, thank you for dinner.
Yeah.
So maybe I just misunderstood the intention of the snack. Anyway, Elizabeth cooks this shrimp. Elizabeth gets mad because she's isolated herself. And then she decides to also cook some shrimp. And then additionally gets more upset because the girls accept the shrimp, but then don't write her personalized thank you notes for the shrimp. So what were y'all's thoughts on this scene interaction?
I thought that was so funny. I thought that was so funny that she was like, anybody could, all you did was cook shrimp. I can cook shrimp. Cuts to her cooking shrimp. And then she brings out the plate. She's like, here you go, some shrimp. And they're like, oh yeah, thank you. And they eat the shrimp and they're like, they didn't even look at me. It was so crazy. I was like, what were you expecting? It's so clear that she's just trying to one up Elizabeth.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure all the other girls were so uncomfortable when they saw that Shanae was cooking shrimp. Like, you are clearly just doing that because Elizabeth just did that. It's just so uncomfortable. And like, what was she expecting? They didn't. I don't know if anybody like came up to Elizabeth's hand and like shook her hand and said, thank you so much for that shrimp. That shrimp was amazing. But I think in Shanae's mind they did, because she was like, oh my gosh, they love Elizabeth because she made shrimp. But what about me? I made shrimp too. I think she got the same recognition for her shrimp that Elizabeth got. I don't know what she was expecting. She's got something built up in her head about how the other girls see her. Yeah, I don't know what she was expecting out of that. But the shrimp drama, I love it. And I love that the shrimp is coming up in the next episode too, because that was in the preview. I love it. I hope it's a motif that's here to stay.
I really wish we could have heard like somebody who tried both of the shrimp and like worded better.
Yes.
This shrimp looked tasty. I don't think I remember seeing Shanae's shrimp, but I would love it if Elizabeth's tasted like 1,000 times better than Shanae's.
I think from my perspective, from seeing the plate that Shanae handed her in the hot tub, it looked very pink and very undercooked and very underseasoned. Like, you saw how Elizabeth was like, it was that perfect shade of like white with a little bit of pink, and you could see the visible garlic and seasonings all over it. Butter. It looked to me like Shanae handed that girl a plate of like almost raw shrimp that had nothing on it. Like, she just tossed it in the skillet, probably the same skillet Elizabeth just used, and just put it on a plate and handed it. I don't think there's no way Shanae's was as good as Elizabeth's. Elizabeth took time to make that shrimp. Shanae said, I can do this too.
I don't think Shanae's cooked shrimp ever. She's probably just like, how hard can it be?
Right.
Very good.
Yeah, but it would have been nice to hear a comparison.
That.
Yeah. It was hard to compare though, because it seemed like only 2 girls got to eat Elizabeth's shrimp because Shanae loaded up that plate.
Yeah. If I were a contestant, I would have gladly given a review of both of the shrimp, because I would have been eating any type of free snack that was handed my way. But yeah, this was very alarming, just how immature Shanae is. Because she hates Elizabeth because she sat next to Clayton once. Like, she literally was just in the wrong place at the wrong time to receive Shanae's wrath. And that's just like so scary that like she can fixate on one person this much for something that's not even unique to her as a person. Like, it's not anything about Elizabeth's personality, about her connection with Clayton. Like, she doesn't even have that strong of a connection with Clayton. Like, it's literally just like, I didn't like that you sat next to him when I was planning to sit next to him. And like, that is scary. And the fact that manifests itself as like literally copying her. Like, it seems like she almost wants to be her. Like, she's like, I'm not included in any of her conversations, as she actively sits on the side by herself. Like, she doesn't present her. It's not like she goes into the conversations and then realizes she's ignored. Like, she got Elizabeth shrimp. She sat down literally away from all the other girls and then gets mad that no one is talking to her. She made her own shrimp and then she gave it out and she's like, no one's talking to me. But like, you could have gotten into that hot tub that they were all sitting in. Like, she just actively takes herself out of situations and then she's like, no one wants to talk to me. It's like, yeah, girl, you're sitting by yourself. I'm not about to chase you down to talk to you. So it's just very alarming.
She is definitely she's definitely created this victim persona in her head and taken everything as an insult and taken everything as if someone doesn't approach her and start a conversation with her, oh, that person hates me. And I think we've seen, and we'll probably talk about it more because we saw it continue more into the group date, definitely. But even up until this point, she is so negative about every single thing a girl does around her. And I think you're right that she is very much copying almost copying Elizabeth. I think she was copying Cassie, and then Cassie left, and now she's solely focused on Elizabeth. Elizabeth definitely 100% lives rent-free in Cassie's head. Every single thing that Elizabeth said. Elizabeth sits down. Cassie said, look at her sitting down like that. Like everything Elizabeth does, when I say the Bachelor producers had that camera on Shanae during that confessional, I would say 20% of this episode was Shanae's confessional. It was all the time like, look at them. I hate them. Look at how excited they are. They're so fake constantly. It was like at the beginning of the episode when they shoot back for this shrimp drama, during the group date, during the cocktail party, it was always just this constant confessional of Shanae saying, they're all awful. Look at them. They're fake. Why are they acting like this? Elizabeth, look at Elizabeth just sitting there. It was constant. I was like, you have filled yourself with this negativity. You have taken this position of being so critical of everyone else, but then you're going to sit there and say that they're bullying you and that they're isolating with you when you've decided that you hate everyone in here. That energy, that aura is going to come off of you and bleed off of you. And it does. She just sits there negative and silent, especially when she's sitting with the girls. She's just sitting there silent, negative. It's such a weird mindset she's kind of built for herself. It's odd.
I think that she sees Elizabeth as a threat, and I don't know if it's they kind of look similar, they both have blonde hair and white and pretty and whatever, and I just feel like she's locked on Elizabeth as Elizabeth is a threat to my game. I need to be the better white pretty blonde girl. I need to make a better impression. Everyone needs to like me more. Clayton needs to like me more. But she does not have the personality or the interest or anything to back that up. And I just feel like she must be so boring that the only thing she can manage to do is cause drama so that Clayton doesn't realize how boring she is, because she has nothing else to bring to the table. And she's just trying to distract everybody from that fact. And she wants to be the better Elizabeth, but she is not, and she never will be. So.
Yeah. I think it's she also doesn't have Cassidy's playbook anymore. I think that is really hindering her, because Cassidy did sit down and she's like, you gotta be the best at the group date, X, Y, and Z, tear down any other girl. Well, she didn't really say that. Shanae kind of made that up in her head, but she was like, you have to be the best at the group date. And Shanae took that and ran. And I think now that Cassidy's gone, she doesn't have any other strategies. So she's just doubling down on this, let me take out Elizabeth's specific strategy.
And I feel Cassidy had the confidence to back up her strategy. I feel like her same strategy doesn't work for Shanae because Shanae is so insecure.
Yeah.
If Shanae was comfortable with who she was, if she really was I really am the better contestant out here, I feel I don't know. Well, I mean, she'd still be mean and it's still, things probably wouldn't go her way. But I just feel Clayton is not feeling the same way because she's trying to do the same things, but she doesn't have the confidence to back it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Cassie being gone is making things very much worse for Shanae, because she no longer has that confidant or that backboard to discuss strategy with. So I think she's just sitting there all day, circling around in her mind, getting paranoid about the other girls, approving of her own tactics, kind of talking to herself, saying, I wonder if I should do this. Yes, I definitely should do this.
Yeah.
And I feel if she had someone to talk to, at least, I'm not saying Cassie was a voice of reason.
But just Shanae she couldn't support her.
Exactly. So if anything, just someone she can talk to so that she can hear her own strategies and thoughts coming out and then get a response from someone else rather than just talking to herself. Because the producers in the confessional are not saying, hey, maybe you should think about that. They're like, yeah, keep going. Definitely. 100%. You're totally right. And so I think now that she's completely alone, it's gotten way much worse. she went rogue last episode anyway. Even with Cassie's advice, she went off the rails with it. She went too far. Even Cassie said that, but I think now it's just even worse because she doesn't even have Cassie to kind of talk things out with. Yeah, she's lost. She's somewhere else. There's no coming back. There's no reasoning with her. She is beyond, she's just delusional. She's got her own delusion she's built up. It's too much.
Yeah. So then we go into a Baywatch date, and they go to do a lifeguard training, which includes CPR, a slow-mo run, applying sunscreen. What were y'all's thoughts on the day portion of this date?
Can I just say, I think it's so interesting that the first group date was a vulnerable conversation about body image issues, and it was really emotional. And the second group date is basically just a sexy swimsuit competition, which is fine. You know, body positivity looks different in all ways. But I just think it was really objectifying, and it was a weird tone coming from that conversation in the first group date. I'm not saying that that's what this group date was about, objectification. It was just it felt weird, the juxtaposition together. No, there was nothing bad about the group date. I don't know, maybe I'm the only one who thought about it like that, but it just seemed a little weird side by side. To just have them, because basically all the tasks were, okay, do this, but see how sexy you could look while you do it, while all wearing matching swimsuits. Just felt weird for them to design that and then have it follow a conversation about, you know, being uncomfortable, and having past body image issues. So I don't know, that stood out to me right away. But this definitely was another one of those dates that was a fun, outside of your comfort zone activity, where then the Bachelor says to each contestant, I really saw a different side of you today. Not that I think Gabby did stand out, but when he came to Gabby and said, wow, I never knew you could be goofy. It's like, first of all, you do not know Gabby. I don't know what time you got another assessment of her. How do you know that this isn't her all the time? He's like, wow, really? Like, this is a whole nother side. She's like, this is how I am all the time. And he was like, whoa, I'm stunned. It's like, how do you know that that's not how? You've never talked to this girl. I mean, he has, but like, you barely talked to this girl, and you're gonna act like, wow, this changed my whole mind. It's like you had no idea who she was. So that's just weird. It's just annoying to hear. I saw a whole new side of you. But it was fine. It was Shanae was being very extra for no reason. Not only her doing the whole sunscreen on the nipples thing, but the camera focusing on that for such a long time, like watching her do that. It's like, I'm good. I don't need to see this anymore. I'm fine. Like, okay, I see what she's doing. We can move on. But that was, yeah. I mean, it was just a fine date.
I agree. It was fine. I just I can't help but watch those things and be like, so they're all just like standing there, like watching each other, like 2 by 2, like out into the water, and then they're just like standing there and just being like, hee. And then, you know, Shanae runs up and they're like making out, and they're just standing there watching her, and they're like, okay, like it just seems. I just feel like there must be so many like awkward moments and awkward silences while filming these things that we don't see, because there was nothing for the rest of them to do. Like, are most of these dates like this? Like, well, I guess most of them have been pretty, like, everybody's involved. This one felt very much like, wait your turn, and then you get to go out and play in the water.
Well, go ahead.
The nipple thing was weird. But go ahead, Brianna.
I personally had a lot of fun with this date. I had a very, I guess, opposite opinion of y'all. Because fun fact for the audience,
I knew you were gonna say it.
Y'all remember lifeguarding was my first job when I was in high school. So when they said that, I was like, here we go. Oh my gosh, let's get to it. I thought they were actually gonna do a lifeguard test. Silly me. I don't know why I thought that. But you know, whatever. I was here for it. I had a lot of fun with it, and I thought it was like something different. Like, yeah, it was like kind of weird, and like it was objectifying. Like, I agree with that, and there probably was a lot of like downtime, like you're saying, Glenn. But I just liked that it was different. I feel like a lot of the dates on recent history of The Bachelor and Bachelorette I've seen before. And it's like, of course, there's different contestants, there's different people, but I haven't seen this particular model of date before. And I love new content, especially after having gotten like 4 back-to-back seasons of The Bachelorette, Bachelor. It all kind of like you see their tricks a little more easily when they're so like crammed together like this. So I like that they actually did something new.
And had a real celebrity this time, right?
I did not know who that was. I've never seen Baywatch.
I didn't know who she was.
It was a C-list celebrity, like it usually is. They usually bring on someone, and then the contestants all act like they know this person. I'm like, y'all did not know who that was. You were told by the producers that name.
Yeah, but I had fun. So then we go to the after party. Clayton ditches the hoodie blazer combo for a little leather jacket ensemble. And then Shanae and Elizabeth continue their quarrels. What were y'all's thoughts on the after party? Any thoughts or girls' interactions that stood out to you, especially?
I mean, well, I think there's a lot to unpack about many different things that occurred. I think definitely the thing we've got to discuss is the Shanae and Elizabeth thing. I felt so bad for Elizabeth because she genuinely has not been able to use her time with Clayton. And if she does get sent home, then I think it would be unrightfully so, because she has not been given a chance, completely out of her control. Like, I think she genuinely did not think there was anything more Shanae could have said to him about her. I think they barely interacted. So I think in her mind, she was like, it's going to be okay. I'm going to be able to talk to him. And then the look on her face when he asked her about Shanae, I understand her frustration, because it's like her thinking again, like, I'm not going to be able to use my time with him. So I'm frustrated for Elizabeth, and I think Shanae has completely lost any possibility of benefit of doubt or of sympathy from the audience, from anyone, with how she acted during this conversation. Because when she cried that whole spiel about being bullied, at first you might think, okay, maybe she does actually think that's happening. And then when it cuts to the confessional and she says, oh my gosh, she believed me, I did so good. I'm like, okay, you've lost everyone. Because even I had like 5% of my brain was like, maybe it is a bad edit. Maybe they are actually being mean to her, and the producers cut it out so that we could think that she's delusional. Maybe. I'll give her the benefit of the doubt. But this sealed the deal. She is purposefully trying to get rid of Elizabeth. She is lying to him. And I think, unfortunately, if he does decide to get rid of Elizabeth, he's going to regret it when he watches that episode back. And I cannot wait for the women tell all. When he gets to confront them after seeing the episodes, because she's going to have to face up to everything she said in these confessionals. She's going to have to. She has basically admitted that she knows what she's saying is not all the way true. And that was just sickening, honestly, to see her say that and to know how badly it's going to affect Elizabeth and the other women who are now getting lumped into this. So I think that was definitely the focal point of this, that accusation from her, and then how that carried over into Elizabeth's conversation. And then I guess Lyndsey's conversation too, when she came back crying. And I think that distracted from any possible good connections that could have been made at this conversation because of the drama that went on. And it sucks that girls like Elizabeth and Lyndsey are not able to forget about that, because Shanae is solely focused on that and has made it her goal that Clayton will always be focused on it as well. So it was sad to see.
I agree. I feel so bad for Elizabeth, and I lost my train of thought. What was I? I don't understand. I genuinely can't understand like where she's coming from, like what her strategy is when she's like crying and then she goes to confessional and she's like, that was all a lie. Like, even if you made it to the end, even if he like chose you and y'all got married, like when he saw this episode, like what was your plan then? Like, is it just to make it to the end, but you don't really, I mean, obviously, like, I feel like she's just in it to be like the winner or whatever. But I don't understand the strategy there. So.
I mean, none of her thoughts are about how much she likes Clayton, and none of her conversations with Clayton are about that. All of her thoughts are how much she hates the other girls and how much she wants to win the competition. So I genuinely don't think she gives a flying hoot what her possible relationship with Clayton could be after this show with all of this. I think she's just solely focused on winning this. Like, she's acting like she's on a competition reality show that's not about dating. It's just about winning. And so I don't think she cares how she looks or what anybody sees on this, because if she makes it to the end, then she wins. It doesn't matter what people think afterwards, after the fact, when they see the shows. She is solely focused on the other women and beating the other women. It could be a personal pride thing then that's carrying her, that's fueling her. Is just, this is how I prove to myself that I'm better than them, is I beat them. And I think it's no longer about her and Clayton. I honestly don't think she cares about Clayton at all.
She did say, like, didn't she say at one point, she was like, I can't let her win. Like,
Yeah.
What do I do? Like, I stop and I let her win. Like, I have to win. But I, like, God, like, Clayton, come on. Like, we can see through this, can't we? Like, open your eyes. Like, what is he doing? Does he have to process?
Starting to a little bit. I think he is, but then he isn't. Like, in his conversation with Shanae, he was like, she was like, yeah, everyone's bullying me, whatever. And he was like, okay, that's cool. Like, let's talk about something else. Like, he kind of seemed like kind of over her conversation a little bit. So I was like, okay, Clayton, maybe we're getting it. And then he goes into his conversation with Elizabeth, and he's like, so I have some stuff to talk to you about. And I was like, okay, we're back. But then at the end of his conversation with Elizabeth, he was like, okay, well, can you just settle this? And it's like, bro, like, why did you even like make her waste her own breath then if you're just gonna be like, well, you handle it? Like, I think Clayton just gets so overwhelmed by these like confrontations and this like facilitation of negotiation. And I think he goes into it thinking that he has the tools or skills to handle it, and then quickly realizes that he's in over his head. But I think he is sick of it. I think he is starting to see through it a little bit. I just don't think he knows how to navigate that, which is frustrating to watch.
I think definitely his whole thing is that he's characterized himself and wants to portray himself. I'm not saying that he's not, but like, he's solely focused on always coming off as sensitive and caring. And he's willing to listen to anyone. So I think every time a woman is coming to him with a problem, he's just solely focused on, okay, I want to make sure she feels heard, and I don't want to say anything accusational or confrontational. And so I think that's beginning to catch up with him, because at some point he's got to say, okay, you're the problem, you need to get out. You know, we have just been through 2 seasons where we saw 2 leading ladies who've done that really well. Michelle did that well, and Katie did that well, saying, you're the problem, get out. And I don't think he's comfortable doing that. I think he doesn't want to look bad for the audience, for Bachelor Nation, if he chooses a side or doesn't listen to her, especially because he wants to be seen as that guy who listens to women. And so I think he's trying very hard. And I think that's why I hated when he said, Elizabeth, you hash this out. It's like, okay, you raggedy dude, you need to figure this out. You need to help them. And so it just seems so, okay, I'm out of this. Like, you ladies figured it out. Like, this is not going to coexist anymore. So we've got an issue here where you've got to choose. You've got to choose one. You've got to listen to this and get the other one out of here, because Elizabeth can't send Shanae home. She can't do that. So if it's becoming clear that Shanae they're not going to come to terms, one's got to go. And that's got to be on Clayton. And he doesn't recognize that yet, I don't think. I think he's still trying to be neutral and be sensitive all the time to everyone. But he can't do it.
Classic 2-on-1.
Exactly. Bring back the 2-on-1. We're not going to get it.
We're not.
But bring it back. It sucked to see Shanae in the preview for the next episode. And I don't know if you guys saw, but I did not see Elizabeth in the preview.
I was looking for her and didn't see her.
It's hard because there's so many white blonde women.
I know.
But I definitely feel like she wasn't there, and especially because on the group date, whatever group date Shanae went on, when she kind of went to the table and grabbed that trophy, Elizabeth was not sitting at that group date. And for sure, if Elizabeth did stay, she's going to be on the same group date as Shanae. The producers would not have them on separate group dates. And so I don't think Elizabeth makes it, which is sad. And when he watches that back, he's going to regret that. I mean, I'm sure he ends up with someone that he loves, and it probably wouldn't change anything anyway. But he's going to see what that continued toxicity did to the girls when he knows he could have gotten rid of it an episode earlier. Because I'm sure it's going to tank other girls, because I'm sure the problem's not going to end once Elizabeth's gone. It's going to be another girl. And so she's going to continue sabotaging and poisoning the other girls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the thing, I mean, again, to go back, like, just be like, Elizabeth, you handle, like, obviously she's been trying to handle it. Like, she hasn't been coming to you about it. It's Shanae. Like, Shanae's the one that's not going to stop coming to you, because, like, she uses all her alone time with you to talk about this thing. So, gosh, I feel so bad for Elizabeth. I feel like they really could have had a connection. They
really could have
stepped in. But good on Shanae. If that's her strategy to, like, subscribe somebody else, she's doing it. So we'll see how far it gets her.
Yeah, she's definitely accomplishing her goals of getting Elizabeth out.
Mm-hmm.
But Clayton did say he was planning to address the tension the next day. I don't really.
I'd be shocked if he did it in an actual solidifying way. If he did something that was actually tangible and real and concrete, a way to solve this, I'd be so shocked. I think it's just going to be a general speech about, hey guys, let's make sure we're not bullying each other. You know, we all need to be friends, blah, blah, blah. And then he's going to leave it at that.
Yep. Just a thing.
Yeah. What this needs to be, I've been waiting for a season that this happens. So many issues would be solved if we just took a blind vote to determine something. If he just said, okay, everyone write on a slip of paper between Shanae and Elizabeth who you think is in the wrong and put it in this box. All the
they've done that before. They did. I watched an episode or like a season from like the thousands, and they did that before, like that same exact thing, like a blind vote in a box.
It needs to come back. It would solve so many of these issues that we've been seeing, where it's one person's word against everyone else, and then the lead will keep talking to each person. It's like, just gather everyone round, take a blind vote. Raise your hand if you think this person's problematic. All right, get out. You know, it doesn't need to be. It should be anonymous, but still.
Yeah.
Let's solve this thing.
I kind of wish, like, I feel like Sierra's been the one who, well, I don't know. She went to Clayton as one that told him about Cassidy. I'm like, Sierra, you need to go to Clayton and be like, Shanae's in the wrong. Like, and Elizabeth was saying, ask anybody, like, ask anyone else, and they will tell you, like, Shanae's the crazy one or whatever.
Yeah. He shouldn't have said, I'll save it to the Rose Ceremony. He should have come out to that group in particular right then and there and said, hey, this is what I'm hearing. I'm going to talk to each and every one of you now, and I'm going to figure out your perspective on this. And I'm going to then learn whose story is different than everyone else's. He could have figured it right then and there with that small group of women. But I guess he just didn't want to deal with it. For a minute, I was thinking, okay, Sierra, you know, you can come in, but at the same time, it is a pretty canonical thing that the one who tattles is poisoned themselves. So Sierra's already in danger because she tattled on Cassie. If she came again with the Shanae thing, she'd be dead in the water. Yeah. You don't want to be the constant tattler. You just end up getting this thing where it's like, okay, they're the trusty friend, but they're not the person that the lead's falling for. We've seen it several times in the past, and so I don't necessarily want that for Sierra. But if she comes to him again, that'll be her mark, is that she's the person who comes to him with the tea.
Real.
Yeah.
I thought she looked really beautiful, by the way, in the what is it? Cocktail party? Is that what you're all calling it?
Well, this is the after party of the group date, right?
Yeah. I really liked her dress. A little fashion.
We haven't even gotten the cocktail party, right?
No.
Yeah. So they're not. It's not just the rose ceremony they're saving. It's the whole entire cocktail party they're saving.
Better be juicy.
It better be. They need to start trying to fit this in an episode. We're falling farther and farther behind. The next thing it's going to be like the second group date is in the next episode.
It confuses me on the timeline too, because I'm like, okay, what day is this again, and how long have they been there? And I don't even know. I don't know what day this is. How long have they been there? I have no idea. How often do they have a rose ceremony? Is it like a weekly thing, or is it? Like
it should be the end of every week. Yeah. So this was week 2, right?
This is a week. Yeah.
Because it's like the first intro night is just one night, and then week 1 has the first. Yeah. There's always been 2 one-on-ones.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Track the one-on-ones. There's only one one-on-one for the first few weeks, and then as soon as we get to a smaller group, there will be more one-on-ones.
Okay. Yeah, then it flips to 2 one-on-ones and 1 group date, and now it's like 2 group dates and 1 one-on-one date. Yep. Well, any other final thoughts or anything we did not touch on from this episode?
I don't think so. I can't wait to see what happens with Shanae next week. I know shrimp is involved, and I cannot wait. I love the shrimp. I love that it's become a thing. First of all, because I don't think I've ever seen them cook shrimp. I don't think that's ever been a snack of choice. But suddenly the shrimp, not only is one girl making shrimp, but two girls are making shrimp, and they're all eating shrimp outside together.
I know, we never seen them cook, period.
Yeah, and like cook for each other.
Yeah.
Like that was a fun element, and then Shanae had to go make it weird. And I love how Elizabeth told Clayton, I literally made her lunch. It's like, oh, that wasn't the intention. You made shrimp for everyone.
But the way Shanae served herself, it was lunch.
Yeah. Yeah. She sure did. She kept pulling the shrimp from the bowl. She came back for more. She pulled a couple shrimp, walked away a little bit, and then said, okay, a couple more. So she knew she was going for a larger serving. That is so funny. I'm so glad to see however shrimp comes up in the next episode. But I will be sad to see Elizabeth go in place of Shanae. I do think the producers are probably having some pull in that. I always hate to see that. I hate to see other girls go for the sake of the villain staying, just because they do need that storyline. What are you gonna do?
I love Elizabeth's shrimp recipe. So Elizabeth is
Bachelor producers, if anyone's listening, drop in the comments.
I don't think there's any chance. So again, new to the Bachelor Nation, is there any chance that they're just not showing us Elizabeth because they want us to think that she's going home, but maybe she will? Like maybe they did put her in the other group date or something.
Very possibly. I mean, yeah, definitely. They know what they're showing us and what they're not showing us in that preview. So they know what we're gonna think. And for them to choose to show us Shanae when there's a choice up in the air like that, they would try to avoid showing either to reveal it. For them choosing to show Shanae, I do 100%. They think they want us to think that Shanae won.
Mm-hmm.
But I also wouldn't be surprised if he chose Shanae over Elizabeth, because Shanae was getting so incredibly emotional. I think in his brain he's like, okay, the more emotional they are, the more honest they're being. Except with Cassie, who was getting weirdly over emotional.
And Shanae always gets to him first, and I think that is Elizabeth's downfall. Like I think if Elizabeth had her time first, because she would have used it to just chat about chatting topics, like just getting to know Clayton. And so then if Shanae had to come in and be like, oh my gosh, everyone's blaming me, he'd be like, well, I didn't hear any of this from Elizabeth. So I think the fact that Shanae is more emotional and that she gets to him first, I think that's what really seals the deal.
It would have been very interesting to see how it would have turned out the other way around, because I do believe if Elizabeth had controlled the conversation, she probably would have said something like, I hate that we haven't been able to have a good conversation, and I'm so glad that thing with Shanae is squashed, because then that could have been the lens that he saw the next conversation through. He could have been like, wait a minute, I thought Elizabeth just said this was over. That's weird. I think he still would have then been suspicious of Elizabeth, as like Elizabeth trying to
that would have really stumped him. He would have just been spinning.
He is out of his depth here. He does not know how to handle these women.
Well, thank you guys so much for joining me today. The conversation was fun, as always.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
All right. And I'll see everyone here next week for another episode of Brianna's Bachelor Breakdown.